To all the mothers who are watching this today, I wish to say Happy Mother's Day from SALT Community of Believers. So many Mother's Day messages are based on Proverbs 31. It's a good passage. It says some good things, some great things. But it could and often does set up the ideal mother, or in fact, the ideal woman. We need to realize that mothers are often less than ideal. Just like all of us, we are people, we are unique, and often we are far from ideal. I came to a relationship with Jesus at the end of high school. I remember seeing Christian family films and hearing Father's Day messages and thinking that I had been cheated because I didn't have a father like that. Now I look at these films and wonder, what must parents feel? How does a mother feel hearing a message on Proverbs 31 and feeling guilty or second rate? Today should be about celebrating and encouraging mothers and not discouraging them by setting a standard that they can't hope to achieve. Today I'd like to do that, to be an encouragement. I want to speak to mothers and not necessarily about them. Moms are having a tough time these days. Some of you are still working at a full-time job while being a wife and homemaker and many other things. But now on top of that, you are the teacher, the principal, the recreation director, the mediator, and sometimes the jailer. And some of you are doing all these things alone as a single mother. If you feel like a failure or bad mother, maybe you feel like a basket case at times, I hope this is an encouragement for you. I want to look at Jochebed, the mother of Moses. Did you know that Moses was the first basket case? I read this recently. A man's best friend is not his dog, it's his mother. And that was certainly the case with Moses. The book of Exodus begins by describing the situation in Egypt. The Israelites began to multiply and Pharaoh became uneasy. He was afraid that if war broke out, the Israelites would join their enemies. The lives of the Hebrews were made bitter with hard work. And when that didn't work, Pharaoh gave this order: every boy that is born to you, you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. Now, a woman of the house of Levi gave birth to a son. And we pick up the story in Exodus chapter 2, verse 2. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, coated it with tar and pitch, and then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered, and the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." In chapter 6, we learn that the name of Moses and Miriam's mother is Jochebed. She took her role and responsibility seriously. In Exodus chapter 2, verse 2, it says, when Jochebed saw her son, she saw that he was good. There was nothing wrong with him. He was fine. Some even described him as beautiful. She realized she had brought a life into this world, and there was nothing wrong with him. There was no good reason to dispose of him just because the authorities told her to. Pharaoh was operating out of an irrational fear. He was afraid of what the Hebrews might become or what they might do. She was willing to disobey a king to preserve the life of her child, even though she realized she risked her own life. Motherhood for her was a service to God and to her nation in a time when both of these services were sorely needed. The Bible doesn't say she was instructed to do this. She merely, out of instinct, chose to protect her child. Pharaoh instructed that the male children should be thrown into the Nile, expecting that there they would be exposed and die. Jochebed protected her son for 3 months and then prepared to put him in the Nile, but in a way that he would still be protected. She was a woman of vision. Acts chapter 7, verse 20 tells us that the baby was exceedingly fair. The NASB says that he was lovely in the sight of God, and the NIV says he was no ordinary child. There was something special about him. And it seems that his mother had a prophetic insight, or at least a spiritual perception. She understood somehow that this child had a greater purpose. She saw the possibilities for a life, for her nation, for her God, and for future generations. She recognized that the baby was designated for spiritual purposes, and she determined to cooperate with the purposes of God for her child. If God had something special in mind, she wanted to see it accomplished. As parents, we have a responsibility to not only care for our children, but to let them know that we believe in them. We may not have specific knowledge on what they will be or what they will accomplish, but we need to confirm in them the belief that they can make a difference, to communicate that they have potential, to instill a confidence in them to try, to become, to achieve. This was her vision for her son Moses. In Hebrews 11:23, it says that she was a woman of faith. She was included in this great hall of great heroes of the faith. She had faith in God. She had faith in herself under God. And she had faith in God's purpose and vision for her child. Hebrews 11:23 says that Moses was a proper child. His parents saw something special in him. Again, the NIV says this was no ordinary child. Jochebed was a mother of courage and sacrifice. She would not accept defeat. She would not accept Pharaoh's desire for the Hebrews. She wanted to do all in her power to meet the need of that time, of that circumstance, of that hour. She believed that God would not leave them in this situation. They were his chosen people. He had a plan for them. And she and her husband knew that God had something special in mind. Maybe this would be their deliverance. So they acted. There is no indication that they knew what was going to happen. They acted in faith, trusting in God's direction. And then when the basket was discovered and Pharaoh's daughter agreed to let Miriam find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby, Jochebed was allowed to raise her own son. She was even paid to do it. She was more than just a parent. She was a teacher. Because children need more than just material things in life. Children need to have the inspiration and guidance of things spiritual. As we see the leader that Moses became, we see the faithful nature and instruction which came from his parents, which were reflected in his character. They taught Moses the truth about God. They gave him an understanding of who God was and what his purpose was, so that when Moses encountered God in the desert, the burning bush, he recognized, yes, this was the great I am. He was sympathetic towards the unfortunate. He saw the needs of others, and although at times he needed persuasion, he reacted and acted in their best interest. He was intolerant to injustice. And he acted out of faith and fairness. Later, he would be led into the desert to learn about the leadership before God called him to his greatest responsibility, leading the people of Israel into the promised land, the land that God had promised to their forefathers. I praise the Lord for all the faithful women, mothers, wives. Yours is a demanding responsibility, especially in these times. We recognize your spiritual heritage, the children that you have raised in the faith, raised in the Lord. And I would like to both encourage and challenge you today to continue fulfilling this high calling. We are thankful for mothers in their service to family and to God. I want you to know that we stand together with you. We are behind you. And today we're glad to praise the Lord in recognition of you. May God bless you.